I got a call from this client who said that I have just gotten a ruling that I am not happy with, and I have a case going to trial against a public interest group in 4 weeks, and I would like you to handle the trial. So the reason the client called me is because they made a determination at that point in time that the law firm that was representing them was not sufficient to deal with the threat they were facing. Literally the next day I was on a plane out to the Central Valley of California interviewing witnesses and talking to the prior counsel. So I took a judgment call on whether to go against, whether to override what the jury consultant was recommending, which it would have been easy to just go along with it, right? But in my heart, as a trial lawyer, I believed that the best decision was a different decision. And I suppose that then the responsibility lies with me, but the responsibility, the way I look at a jury trial, lies with me anyways. So what this particular case was about was a single employee that worked for my client, Foster Farms. The case was being pushed by a public interest group, and they wanted to set a precedent. The precedent had to deal with leave of absence from work for medical reasons, and they wanted to expand the scope of when an employee could qualify for that sort of leave, because that sort of leave has protections that other types of leave, such as vacation, don't have. This was a female employee. She was Hispanic, as were many employees in this workforce. And she spoke English, but her main language, her primary language, was Spanish. So one of the things that the public interest group was saying was that she didn't really understand what she was doing. In this case, there was what's called a voir dire process, which is the jury selection process, and the judge let the lawyers participate in that process. We were able to talk to the jury directly, potential jurors, and ask them questions. So in this case, both sides had jury consultants that assisted in the selection of the jury, and those consultants tend to rely on sociological data. I would call that a very scientific process. What was interesting in this case was I intervened in that process as a lawyer and made a couple of decisions that were contrary to what the data would indicate. One of the potential jurors was a welder, and the jury consultant thought that that sort of employment was not a good fit for a jury that involved a blue-collar worker. One of the issues in the case was the worker not returning to work on time on the day she was supposed to be back at work. I myself had been a welder. I had worked before I went to college on construction sites, and realized that from that experience that sometimes that weld can hold up the entire crew on a site. It could hold up the entire job. No progress may be made if you're late for work, and that happened to me. So just like a welder, if you're a poultry worker working on a line, if you're not there, then that's going to have an impact on the people down the line. I felt like that this welder, who I liked the way he carried himself, looked, I was able to ask him a few questions. I felt he would be a good, strong juror for us, and that he would identify with this principle that if you're supposed to be back at work on Tuesday, May 14th, that if you're not there, that's a problem and may warrant discipline. He became the foreman of the jury. The jury was out, in other words, deliberating for 45 minutes. And they came back with a complete defense verdict, which is exactly what we wanted, and it was outstanding. As a trial lawyer representing a company, which I was in this case, you're the face of the company. And your credibility is very important because it's not an individual. And in this case, we had an individual on the other side the jury could look at. I believe that the jury in a case like this is looking at the lawyer to be the face of the company. And so I try to keep that in mind at all times. So I think sometimes my lawyer instincts are better than the scientific data, and this so happens to be just one of those cases.